All right, so Wednesday, the 17th, April 2024. I have literally the tripod sitting on the passenger seat. And I've got my phone hooked up to that, so I don't know how stable, 0% stable actually, this is going to be. Plus there's bumps in the garage, so we're just testing this, okay? If it's usable, I will upload it. If it's not usable, goodbye, sir. But the reason we're making this video is I'm going to be doing a mobility day for everybody updated for the channel. Okay, so upon reviewing the footage, what I noticed is I'm definitely going to need headphones. I thought that the AirPod headphones would work and kind of serve as like a microphone, so I could just speak directly into the camera. And I was using them in the car, and it seemed like it was working, but I think that the audio is just being picked up by the phone itself. So I need to figure out where those lovely portable mic is. I definitely have a Bluetooth portable mic. So I'm going to do that for the gym. This is like my mistake. First time trying this. Forgive me. But jumping into what we're trying to do here is foam rolling, okay? Now, I'm probably going to have to skip around. I've already increased the footage by 2 times its normal speed. You can see right here, I just foam rolled my left hip glute. And I usually start the mobility session with like 5 minutes of this, give or take. 5, could be 8 minutes, just depending on how beat up I am. On this particular week, the only thing that's really causing residual soreness is a right shoulder strain. So all my pressing movements are, I don't want to say they're inhibited, but like I have a really hard time doing a barbell bench press, so I'm not even going to bother. So as I'm continuing to foam roll, I'm talking to the camera, kind of covering what I'm doing. Right now I'm kind of digging into my hip flexors. I find that moving from left to right does a better job than just going from straight up and down. I'm not saying don't go up and down. You can 100% do that. There's no issue whatsoever. But if you're looking to cover more tissue, then it's not a bad idea to go from left to right. So by me kind of bringing my outside leg directly over like that, I feel like it does 2 things. It opens up my hips and it actually hits the hip flexor. Transferring over into my quads. This is not a super fun one if you've never done this before. Usually a lot of adhesions in the leg. For me, it's a ton of in the quad, so this is not a particularly fun thing for a lot of people. If you wanted to make this a little bit more difficult, you could actually flex the knee, bring the heel to the butt, and kind of treat it like you're doing a hamstring curl. That's going to pull the tissue even tighter and obviously dig into the quad itself a little bit more. If I was doing a quad focused day, maybe I would do that. Because I'm not training today, quote unquote, I'm not really doing that. I'm just rolling the quads, making sure that I'm nice and limber before I move into some of the mobility work, treating everything bilaterally. So I'll focus on one leg at a time, getting into, just below the hip flexor, moving it around left to right, up and down. And I'm driving with that outside leg, and then I'm kind of just sweeping back with the right leg or the inside leg that's on the foam roller. This particular foam roll is pretty soft. I think for everybody, I would say like the standard cheap $5 to $10 one that you would get anywhere is probably just enough stiffness to get the job done. I don't know why this gym particularly has like this pretty soft one. It's noticeably soft versus the harder foam rollers I've used in the past. But now I'm switching. I'm kind of getting the meat of my back. I was saying in the video too, my right shoulder in my rear delt is sensitive. So I think for me specifically, coming in today, I want to ease some of that tension in that area. So I'm hitting like the lat in the right side a little bit more than the left. I'm rolling the rear delt as well. And you'll see this at the end of the video, but I actually roll my right pec and my front delt too, just to kind of hopefully do as much as I physically can, just to kind of prepare myself for the inevitable push day that's around the corner. This is a good exercise, this one right here, for some extension. A lot of what we do on our day-to-day life is flexion focused. So I'm trying to extend backwards using the foam roller as a tool. I'm not getting extra length from like my hips, so my butt's on the floor. I'm pressing through the heels, hands over, by the ears, and I'm just stretching back. This is the upper back variation. I'll do this for 3 to 5 seconds, then I'll move the foam roller down. I'll do it again for about 3 to 5 seconds. You can see I get a little bit more range of motion there. And then the last one actually got a nice therapeutic crack as I go right out there, which felt very nice. And then I'm back up. So I was probably talking about that during the video. Like I said, it's super loud in the gym. They're really pumping up the tunes. Not to mention the dude next to me was just freestyle rapping with his headphones on. So that was distracting, but didn't take us off the point. It definitely picked up some of the audio there. And then in conclusion, you can see me, I'm foam rolling the pec, a little bit of the front delt. There's things that you can see I'm kind of moving my arm around right there. I'm hitting different spots by moving my shoulder into different positions. And like I said, this is probably the most annoying thing that I have going on with my body right now. It's just being not able to push as much as I want. But this is the extent of the foam rolling. Do this before you do your mobility sessions, and you'll have a good return on your investment. So what you just saw in the previous two clips was me doing a cat-cow. You saw me doing a thread the needle. And then there was a child's pose into cobra. And now we've moved on to a couch stretch. So targeting the hip flexors. I like the stick to keep me upright. It's also easy to brace when you have that there. One thing you can take into consideration is when you're in this stretch and you want to make it a little bit more difficult is you can actually fire and squeeze the glute of the side that is being worked on. So in this situation, my right glute, my right leg is back, it's on the box. If I squeeze that thing, I'm gonna have a deeper sensation in quad and hip flexor. I I could definitely get away with that on my good side, which I believe is my right side. But if I did it on my left side, it'd probably be a little bit too much. So just be mindful of where you're at in the progress of this stretch. I like to hang out in this one for, could be 45 seconds, could be a minute. Sometimes I'll repeat it. Just depends on how tight I feel like my hips and hip flexors are. On this situation, on this day, I only felt like I needed to do it one time. So this is one side of it, and we're going to be following up with the other side. Okay, now this is actually my good side. So actually, no, incorrect. This is my questionable side. So the left side's always been tighter. You can kind of see like I'm a little bit crooked. I'm a little bit crooked. My hips aren't necessarily straight on, and I'm kind of leaning back on the right a little bit as a compensation tactic. You're probably going to find that you have one tighter side, especially if you're going through a back injury specifically, just because that one side could be also where you have a lot of that nervy discomfort sensation that goes either in your glute, hamstring, calf, and or foot. So for me, when I first started this last year, good Lord, like my hip flexor on this side, I couldn't even get into this position. I couldn't even put my foot on the box. So the first thing I really had to work on was trying to be able to do it from the floor. I was laying on my side and I had a band where I would try to pull my foot back, and that's the only way I could really get in there. Or, vice versa, you can just get a smaller box, put that back foot up there, and then slowly push back to kind of get that hip flexor starting to get a little bit more mobile. And then eventually, hey, you can sit right up. I'm still a little bit twisted, so if I was doing this a little bit better, I'd probably have a little bit better hip placement, and I wouldn't be leaning back. I think it's getting progressively better as I get looser in the video, which is good. But I would probably want to pull that right shoulder a little bit more forward, drop the left shoulder a touch, and just try to work on pillar. Like I want to make sure that as I'm doing my mobility, that I'm actually preserving the integrity of the way my body looks. You don't want to get into these weird, unathletic, unadvantageous positions just for the sake of a stretch. That is not going to do your back any justice whatsoever. So in this one, this isn't a big one for me, but I thought I'd put it on camera. This was one of the big ones that I started doing when I got back into hinging. And, for you guys going through the lower back stuff, you're going to notice that anytime you hinge, good Lord, is it a scary feeling, because you are almost like putting yourself in a compromising position to hopefully, achieve spinal neutrality and then bend over. But any bending over, any flexion, anything like that is going to cause that irritation. I have found that a good entry point into doing hinge movements is with really wide legs, almost like a sumo type of approach, and then doing it from the box. So this is how I would work on my posterior training day. This is how I'd warm it up. It would be either posterior, or it could even do leg day. I'm basically lubricating the lower back and everything around there, but I'm doing it with wider legs. And I'm kind of speaking through it on the camera because I thought the audio could pick up, and I was wrong. But ultimately, if you're still having issues with your hinge, get a box, okay? Get a nice wide athletic stance, reach down, make sure that you have a neutral spine, and then you can see there's a little bit of rounding there for me, but I don't necessarily think in this position for me, rounding is gonna be that bad, because flexion isn't going to, I need to increase flexion tolerance anyway, but for you, you're probably gonna have a little bit more neutral back. Think about a stick behind your back, and you're trying to keep that same alignment with the stick. Right now you can see that I have a good neutral spine, head's in good position. As you advance this, you can put your arms out, which is then going to create more tension in the lower back, because you're basically supporting the weight of your extremities, and that's going to go to your lower back, your core. You're supporting that weight of your extremities by keeping that outright. So definitely a good warm activity. And then I think I stand up at a certain point to kind of like further explain my point. Pretty soon, I'm sure I'm going to get up. There we go. All right, so you can see I'm just doing a hinge, driving hips back, nice neutral back. I'm getting a nice stretch in the hamstrings, sitting back. I'm saying that's basically the same concept, but when you feel more comfortable, that's when you're okay to stand up, okay? That's when you can change stances. That's when you can have it a little bit more narrow. You're gonna get less nerve sensation. And then also, if you're working on sumo kettlebell lifts, that's a good entry point there as well. Now, moving on, this would be my rendition of doing a pigeon stretch. So for those of you that are familiar with yoga, pigeon stretch is something that we do, or that people do from the floor. But getting into that position from the floor is pretty difficult. So if you have a heightened platform, could be a chair, could be a couch, could be a box, whatever you have available to you, this is a really good entry point to start working on that hip. And then once you get that hip into a position that you feel comfortable with, you can lean forward to increase the, let's say, difficulty of the stretch. Ultimately, what we want to do is be able to kind of create almost like a pulse where you're getting in position and then using the strength of the hip to come back out of the position, not necessarily just using the lower back to fire back up. That would probably be a good lower back pump workout right there. But if you can use your hip complex to go back up into position, you're going to be in a much better spot. Now, be mindful that this is my left side. So you can see like my knee is not touching the box. If I had better mobility, better strength, I could probably get even lower. Now, we're going to be going to my good side, and you can actually see the noticeable differences between my good and my weaker side. So not necessarily is just the mobility and flexibility the key. It actually might be a strength issue as well. So let's go to the right side. Foot placement's already a little bit closer. I probably could move my foot out a little bit more, but look at that. I mean, you're getting like probably 10, 15, 20 degrees of just normal passive flexion. And then as I add more weight to it, it's basically parallel to the floor at this point. So you want to be able to build up your capacity over time to have your weaker side be just as good as your dominant side. You're trying to limit your vulnerabilities, which is ultimately going to make you stronger, which is, I guess, annoying to when you train legs, because everything you see on the internet is always like you're training with both legs. You're squatting with both legs. There's not a lot of unilateral work where you're doing, you're prioritizing one side at a time to establish those weaknesses. But if you can establish those weaknesses, you can actually, have a certain amount of reps that you do on your weaker side, and then you're mirroring it on your good side. But if you're constantly doing, 5, 10 more reps on your good side, you're just increasing, I guess, the differences between those legs, and then potentially creating an even greater disparity between the strength to the weakness. So that is this one. Your body's going to want to twist out this way. That's a compensation test. So I'm going to need you guys to stay forward like this. And that's where you're going to get that real nice stretch. Come back out. This is an optional thing. Depending on if you have that nerve sensitivity in either leg. This is where you get a slight hamstring stretch. Straightening out that left knee, going on the heel, leaning forward a little bit. That's going to be more than enough. Trigger the hamstring stretch. Come back out. Pulse back into position. Drive, 3, 2, 1, we're out. Boom. 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 I like the pulse is good. I like holding there. for 3 hours. There's no problem with even pulsing for 4 or 5 reps. And then hold it. 20 seconds is fine. I'm not going to demonstrate 20 seconds, but 20 seconds, same thing here, 20 seconds, and then we're out. So this was like 12 o'clock, then you got 11 o'clock, I suppose. 10 or 11. Back into the same thing. Getting those babies limbered up. Those babies limbered up. Boom. Boom. Hold. Then you've got open up that door. Laterally. Get the inside. Just like that. Boom. Boom. People say this one's usually the tightest. All right, last mobility activity for the day. This is going to take us probably right to the 1 hour mark. We're going to be doing some TRX deep squats. And we're just holding the position when you get into the hole. It's a great hip opener. It's great on the lower back. You know, you guys are going to notice that the tighter your hips are, the tighter your lower back is. Everything is going to act in accordance to how much, I guess, range of motion your body has. And not only range of motion, but how much strength you have in those different ranges of motion. So, you know, I see clients that are typically squatting at 90 degrees, and I'm like, okay, let's go a little bit further. Form breaks down, injury happens, and then we're back to square one. So I'd much rather have somebody work on depth and getting their body into a position where they're in better ranges of motion, and then they can start to actually load that movement within those new ranges of motion. Because, you know, quite frankly, if you are stuck at 90, like if I had just stopped right there where my hamstring isn't kissing calf, and, you know, I'm walking and I go to trip and my body is never in that range of motion, I'm going to be in a lot of pain, potential strain, potential tears. So in the video, you can see like I'm leaning back too far, and I'm trying to present that by saying like, you want to be over your midfoot. So you're in position, you sit down, the TRX is keeping the chest upright. And I'm getting a really good, nice stretch in the hips, okay? My quads are stretched, I'm loading the foot, my heels are down, and I can drive right up. So I'm just getting my legs and everything in a position where not only am I loading it properly, but I'm in a position that's very comfortable. Now, when I move my knees from left to right, I'm also getting different stimulus to my hips. So I'm kind of just opening everything up, come back up, that's the second rep. And on the third rep, I said, you know, you can even add in rotation with the TRX, which is really cool and different than you can do with other things, because the cables are going to keep you in a safe position. So if I do almost like a bicep curl with my right arm and I extend my left arm, I'm getting a nice stretch in my lat. I'm also getting some rotation in the spine as well, which is very good and healthy, and hopefully undo some of the stagnant positions that we have, you know, from like our 9 to 5s. So a little bit less good on the other side because I couldn't extend my arm. Maybe the cable was locked. It's hard to say on that one, but you only need to do about 4 or 5 reps. This is repeatable. You could do 2 to 3 sets. I chose to do the 1 set on video, and that is the mobility regiment that I'm doing on my off days. I hope this helps. Like, comment, subscribe to the video if you want more content like this, and we'll be looking to get some training stuff. Dragon Aus.